Hello everyone and welcome to Wildside Guides Bear bonus lesson. We're going to be making a marbled bear using shaving cream and dye. It's kind of a neat little project that you can hang up, frame it, and as a reminder of the bear and what it means to you without actually having it written down. So we start by making a template or creating a stencil. So I printed out a bear, just a silhouette of a bear, and there's a PDF in the classroom for you to print out if you want one, and I put it in a Word file so that you can change the size. Mine fills an 8 by 10 page, but you can change the size of the image, so if you want a smaller bear you can do that. So you could print it out right on cardstock. Mine, I had drawn it onto an 8.5 by 11 sheet of regular paper and then traced it onto the cardstock. But you could skip that step and just go right onto the cardstock if you're using the image from the classroom. So once it's on the cardstock, I use scissors to cut it out, but you could also use an X-Acto knife. I chose to cut into the bear and then go around with the intention of taping up that split at the end, because I want the mask from inside as well for other projects. So you could actually fold the paper and cut into the bear and cut from the inside out. I chose to cut from the outside in, so I could have both the stencil and the mask. So if you cut from the outside in, I just use a bit of masking tape to tape that up. Now we have a little stencil. Then I use parchment paper, or you could use wax paper, or if you have a baking dish, I cut it to the size of my paper. And I tape the paper down a bit because it's a bit sticky, and I also tape the stencil down to a piece of watercolor paper so that it won't move on me. And that part's a little bit flippy, so I put a little bit of tape there too. Then I'm getting out just some different things to try. I've got some inks, some spray, not spray paints, they are tie dyes, spray tie dyes, some fluid acrylics. These are the Jane Davenport mermaid pens, which are made from dye. You could also use food coloring. Then I have foaming shave cream and a spatula, which will be used at the end to take the shave cream off. So what you want to do is make a layer of shave cream. Then I smooth it out with a palette brush, but you could use your spatula or anything. I'm making it the same size as my bear or my paper. And then I just start to drop the inks or dyes in. Do the same thing with food coloring. You could use liquid watercolors. You could water down acrylics and try that. Those are the tie dyes. Just sort of splattering it on. Keep in mind if you're using multiple colors from different families, for example, if you're using a red and a green, or blue and orange, opposite colors or contrasting colors could make brown. So when you go to stir it up, you want to make sure that you're not going to mix the two together unless that's the effect you're going for. Then you take the back of a paintbrush or a toothpick and you can start to scribble and swirl all around. Pretty fun. So just fill it up as much as you want. Take your piece of paper with the stencil on it and lay it down. Now I pulled it up the first time I took a little peek, but the shaving cream hadn't completely covered the bear yet. So I flipped it over and gave a little push. There were some spots that didn't get covered, so I used the spatula to kind of cream it on. You give it a second, and then with your spatula, you just wipe it off. Wipe off the excess shaving cream. And I just wipe it back onto the freezer paper. I always make a giant mess when I make these. There's shaving cream everywhere. You can even reuse the shaving cream that you have to do another pattern. So I'm just making a little bit more because the bottom of his foot didn't have any marbling on it. And then I just use the spatula to scoop it up and put it on. And I take the stencil off, and it turned out pretty well. There's a couple spots that kind of bled underneath the stencil. I didn't tape it down the best that I could, but that's okay. So I just kind of tried to wipe a little bit off, let it dry. That's just a heat gun, but you can let it dry naturally. I clean up my space a little bit so I don't get it on my fingers or accidentally flop it on the bear again. As I said, for me it gets everywhere. Then I just take some white paint. If you had your stencil taped down really well or it didn't do any bleeding, then you wouldn't need to do this. But I just took some white paint and went carefully around the bear to remove some of that bleeding. And it took a couple layers to cover it completely. You can still see it a little bit in the end, but it's mostly covered. You could do this in a journal book, you could do it on a separate piece of paper like I did. I thought it might be a nice little project that you could have as a reminder of what bear means to you, or as a little totem card, depending on how big you made it. You could frame it and hang it in your room or in your sacred space, in the office, just as a reminder. For me, the bear was a reminder to stand in my power and take time for me. So I'll be hanging this up in my classroom at work. Over top, I put a little bit of matte medium just to finish it off. You don't have to do that step though. So thank you so much. I hope you had fun.